Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the Anfield Index Pro Minefield podcast. I'm your host, Alan O'Donoghue, and as always, I am joined by my partner in crime, Dr. Andrew Vincent. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Just recovered from the holidays still.
We did have a fascinating conversation about our holiday breaks.
We did. And all I'll need to tell people is that being able to watch Liverpool is a welcome, relaxing change from my Christmas season. So we'll let everyone make what they want from that.
Yeah, everyone's going to feel very, very empathetic towards you right now. Because
everyone's okay, actually. Let me say that. So that would apply. Everyone in my life is okay. So we're all happy and healthy. Just it was stressful and whatnot. So yeah, everyone's good. You don't need to check in. But yeah, happy to be talking about Liverpool.
Are you? Because I'm not. But I didn't have as stressful a Christmas as you did. So we're gonna get into the state of things right now for Liverpool, and we're going to take it from a couple of different angles. And for me, and probably most of us, watching Liverpool right now is not enjoyable. I am not seeing anything that is cohesive. I'm not seeing anything that is showing me that the lads are in flow. It's not they seem to not know what they're meant to be doing or unable to actually execute what they're being asked to do. And I've kind of been staying away from social media because I find that it's very easy to get dragged into narratives and stuff like that. And we can touch on this stuff as we go along. But what I want to touch on first of all, Andrew, is do you think there is a psychological issue at the moment, and maybe issue is the wrong word, but something going on for them that we are so fearful about going one goal down and not having the confidence to know that we can come back and win, never mind get a draw? Do you think there is something going on? Because for me watching the team right now, it looks metaphorically like when we go a goal down, it's someone pops the balloon and all the air just goes out of the whole thing and we just go flat. So for a lot of teams, or certainly for us when we were in our heyday, if we went a goal down, you could see that nobody was panicking. You could see that there was the belief and confidence that it's okay, it's only a goal, we're going to get this back. Whereas now it is, oh no, here we are again, because it's happening almost every single game.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It is.
It is like when Allison just gave the ball to Wolves for that first goal, it was just like this is real. This is us now. And I think that's, yes, there's something psychological going on, absolutely. I'd love to see us score first a couple times and see how we react to that and what we do. But until then, at least we can analyze what happens going a goal down. It's a lot about scripts and expectations, and one of the things that's really nice about this is the psychology of the players in this case often isn't all that different from the psychology of the fans. So if you can be attentive to what you notice as you're watching the game, there's some extent to which you can, it's not going to be an exact match, and there's differences, right? If you find 5 fans, they might react 5 different ways. 5 players are going to react 5 different ways, whatever. But as a fan too, you start the game with maybe this expectation of like, okay, maybe this can be the game. Maybe we can get this going. Like, we got to get back on track. There's some optimism of possibility and what can happen. And then that first goal goes in against us, and it's like, uh-oh. Like, is it going to be one of those games again? Now we're battling back in. Are we going to be able to do this? And you think 3 years ago or whatever, even if we gave up the first goal, which rarely happened, but like, I would have felt really confident that, we're going to come back and win this game. And I bet for a lot of people, if you think about the beginning of the season when we started doing this, often the other team would score first, and I wouldn't even think about it. I'd just be like, shoot. But like, I felt really confident we were going to come back and win, because over the past 5 years, we have won so much and so consistently and been so unfazed that your brain doesn't worry about that very much. Like, experience influences your thought patterns. Mm-hmm. So if you have this experience of a lot of success, you expect this success to a certain degree, or your brain is like, okay, like, yes, we got to fight back now or whatever, but like, very much winning feels like the most likely outcome. So there's less anxiety there, there's less tension there, there's less panic there, there's less dread there. As a fan, dread is the feeling that I get. It's like, oh fuck, are we in for this kind of game again? For the players, I think it's going to mirror that a little bit. You're going to have that hope and optimism at the start of the game. That's part of it. Like, they're always going to go in thinking they can win. They're going to look at the team sheet and be like, okay, like, we're a team that can and should win here. And then that goal goes in, or maybe we start slow, but like, eventually we give up that goal. And it's like, oh God, is this going to be a hard day? And that question of, are we going to be able to do this? Like, if I were to put it as like a timeline, it starts with, oops, we'll go win this game, to, we got to dial it in so we can win this game, to, are we going to be able to win this game, to, I hope we can find a way to win this game, we got to really pull it together, to, shit, we're probably not going to be able to win this one, or shit, here we go again. And I think we've made it all the way. Like, at least as fans, like, my reaction to that is, fuck, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. And so we've made the journey from doubters to believers to doubters again. Yeah. And
I'm 100% there, Andrew. I actually, and like, I'm an optimistic person. Like, the glass is always half full when it comes to me. Always, I swear to you. Right? Yeah. When it comes
I've noticed that. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
But when it comes to watching Liverpool right now, I do not expect us to win any match right now. And like, we have been. It's not like we're losing every single match. We have been, but I don't expect us to win. And even in the games that we have won recently, like, we beat Leicester, we beat Villa, we did not play well in those games. Like, there was no apparent structure, there was no apparent plan, there was no apparent flow to it. It just looked like a bunch of lads who just got lucky to win 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, especially that Leicester game. Like, that was like, we didn't even score a goal.
We didn't score a goal. And
that was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, like, even the Wolves match, we should have lost. Like, that rule for Salah's goal is ridiculous. He was offside. Exactly. He was offside. Right. Yeah, and exactly. Núñez wasn't offside for their 3rd goal. You know?
Right. Yeah.
So
that's absolutely true.
I suppose.
I was going to say, there were moments in the Wolves game that I sort of enjoyed. Like, I thought there was like a 20 minutes at the end where we like pressed actually, and it looked like pressing, and it was like, oh, like, cool. Like, I can see what they're trying to do. And even at the beginning, there were moments where it's like, oh, I feel like I can see what they're trying to do. But like, you can't only do that for like 20 minutes of the game or 30 minutes of the game and then be so open.
Yeah.
And make bad mistakes, you know, and like that's
the other thing I wonder as well right now. Like, a lot of the goals we're conceding are glaringly obvious mistakes. It's not phenomenal play from the opposition. It is from mistakes. And that surely has to get into the psyche of the players as well, where you are no longer operating on automaticity. You are beginning to operate from, I can't make a mistake. which means everything slows down by that split second. You're just not as effective as you normally would be. And because you're integrating, you know, the likes of Nunez, now we've got Gakpo coming in, you know, Harvey Elliott, I suppose, is integrating this season as well. And Ox coming back in from out of nowhere, like he's having to integrate again as well. Like, so all the components.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
That made us what we were have shifted.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, often, you know, when I'm talking to a group or I'm talking to an individual, like, I talk about focus and confidence and consistency needing somewhere to live. And, you know, when I talk about that, like, I think I've said this probably a million times on this podcast, is like, confidence is always confidence in something. And the example I always use, and I probably used it here before, is I'll be like, if I brought you 3 chainsaws and turned them on and said, hey, juggle these, would you do it? And the person's always like, no. And it's like, well, is that because you're not a confident enough person? What if I told you to be confident about it? Would you do it? And they're like, no. It's like, good, that's smart. It's not wanting to juggle those 3 chainsaws doesn't mean you lack confidence. Well, it does. You lack the confidence to juggle the 3 chainsaws, but that's correct. You can't juggle chainsaws unless there's something I don't know about you. And so, like, yeah, which, you know, I don't know. Like, maybe, like, it's a glass half full is maybe maybe.
Give me those chainsaws. What could go wrong?
But like, confidence comes from starting with what can I do, and how do I do that effectively. And so, like, being really mindful of the challenge you're setting for yourself or your process. You have confidence in a process. I can do this. The same for focus. All the time, coaches will be like, focus up, everyone, focus up. And I always ask people, like, what does that mean? What do you do when you get that instruction? Do you squint your eyes a little bit? Do you tense a little bit? You kind of like, there's some feeling of like general readiness that I think a lot of us can channel. And that's kind of what we do when we're told to focus on something, is like invest mental energy in this very general way. But like, that gets a million times better if there's somewhere for your focus to live. Right? If focus up means move your feet, keep your head up. If it like have just one thing is what I always talk about. What's the one thing that pulls you into your game, and how do you make that your focal point? Your focus lives there, your confidence lives there, and then as a result, your consistency lives there. And so if consistency by definition is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over in a way that maintains quality. You're repeating this at a consistent level. I don't have like another synonym to throw in there. It's just, that's what it is. And so if you think about someone or you think about us right now, where it's like, okay, like we're coming out and we're playing one way because we feel confident we're going down a goal. Now we're shifting because we feel like we have to chase a game. That's one change. Maybe we score and then we settle into it a little bit and we try to calm down. That's a second change or a third change. And like, you know, mentally, as you're constantly shifting your challenge or saying, I need to play a different way to accomplish this thing, it means you don't have faith in a specific process. And of course, then there's no hope for consistency. By definition, if you had to change your approach to this game 5 times, the likelihood of your demonstrating consistency is terrible. And we see that across games for this Liverpool right now. How often have we felt like, oh, we need a slightly new approach. We need a formation tweak. We need, you know, someone new in this role, or maybe we'll adjust this person's role, or we'll add or try this thing. Like, it's impossible to be consistent if you're constantly making changes.
Yeah, and that's something that worried me before the World Cup break, was seeing the chopping and changing of formations, of tactics. It provided me with a lot of concern because, one, we had a way of playing that worked.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it actually worked. And then, for whatever reason, like, I know coaches need to evolve, and that, the best coaches have the ability to evolve their tactics. But it seemed like Klopp tried, Klopp and his backroom team, it's almost like they looked at it and said, okay, well, these players are so good, they will be able to adapt to this new structure that we're looking to play, as well as integrating these new players, and they'll be able to do it as well. And they just haven't been able to do it. And I'm wondering then, with the chopping and changing, game in, game out, what does that tell the players about the confidence that the boss has in them and in his own tactics and his own ability?
Mm-hmm. And, I think and it's interesting, right? Like, at the Klopp's post-game press conferences, he's usually pretty measured about, like, I've got to watch it and see. And I think he does a nice job, too, of being, of not buying into narratives and being super reactive. Like, he has a lot of faith in his plan. So it's interesting to listen to him because, even after Wolves, he was like, we're in the right spots, but we can't win a tackle. And so, our whole team is prepared to respond to us winning the ball here, and we're losing the ball here. And so, once you do that, you're fucked, is kind of what he said. So I don't know why we can't win a tackle, or what's that about. I don't even know if we're in the right spots or not. I sort of have some belief in him if he's saying that we're in the right spots. But, watching the game, something is so obviously wrong. And so, I think, the chopping and changing, clearly he's tried to shift tactics a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly he's rolled out a few different things, and none of them have really solved the problem. So I think, what that would communicate to the players is we don't have a clear plan or process. Or if you've tried to learn 2 or 3 different things this year to solve a certain issue, when you go a goal down, where do you put your focus? Where do you put your confidence? How do you create consistency? There's not a clear and trusted process that you can turn to so that I can juggle these chainsaws because I know how to juggle chainsaws. Turns into, how do I do this? Let me give this a shot. And then if it doesn't work, well, okay, let me try this different thing. And I think the other thing I think fans will be able to relate to is, I talk a lot about identity. An identity is a construct of this is who we are. This is how we interact with the world. This is
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own 2-footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Over the past 3-4 seasons, that's been top of the league. We win games. We blow teams out. People can't keep up with us. One of the, if not the best team in the world, right? That's right where we see ourselves, the upper echelon. When you have a sudden decline, or you're suddenly not performing the same way, sometimes the focus is on, okay, how do we get back? Like, okay, we've got to recreate what we were doing before in order to have that same success. And sometimes it's hard to like wrap your head around the fact that like, no, that's gone. The team has changed. There's new personnel. People are older. Like that group is done. Like it's over. We're not going back. But I think what can happen is like, you know, it's you play 20 bad minutes or you play a bad half and you go down a couple goals and then the second half is good. It's like, okay, they were back in the second half, so we don't need to panic. We just need to keep recreating that. We have to go back to that. And then, you know, maybe there's a good game, and this happened. We talked about this in the start of the season. It happened all the time. It was like, okay, now we're back and we're here. And then on the other hand, it's like, then we play a bad game. It's like, oh no, like we're shit. How come we're so inconsistent? But like, okay, they just got to get back. They got to get back. They got to get back. And it's like, it's not. Something new needs to happen. And I would hope that with Klopp, it's not like I hope he's not throwing out gegenpressing and counter-pressing and his whole approach to soccer. Like, that would be really disappointing because I liked watching us play that way. Like, really what it is, though, is like a taking stock of, like, what do we have in this group? What are the patterns that we need to focus on? How do our systems need to work? How do we get the best out of these players in this group? Hopefully still playing some version of counter-pressing, unless it's really just the case that our team can't do it.
Yeah.
And then,
and
I don't know what we...
What really jumped out at me and really resonated with me there was how you described, you know, practicing 2 or 3 different ways to play can be too much. If we think about, this is not just one person. This is a collection of 11 plus potentially 5 subs, knowing what they're meant to be doing and going back as well to the identity. So we had an identity of how we played. We had gegenpressing and it worked and everyone knew what they do. So people coming on, people coming off could slot into those positions and knew what they had to do. I suspect, and this is why what you've just said really resonated with me, is that when we go a goal down or we don't win the tackle, as Klopp talks about it, then we have 11 players on the pitch who think we have to do one of the other 2 or 3 different ways of playing. But that's not consistent throughout the team, which makes it look so disjointed, because you might have 3 fellas doing tactic number 1. You might have 4 fellas, and I know I'm simplifying it here, 4 fellas doing tactic number 2, and the rest are doing tactic number 3. And all of a sudden, it looks as if there is no tactics whatsoever, because different people are doing different things. And I don't know. Like I'm sure Klopp has to have I don't want to say stubborn streak. That's not the right phrase. Yeah, but it's not the right phrase in this respect. Trust in himself and his process. Right? Mm-hmm. So he has to have a certain amount of trust in his process, or a lot of trust in his process, so that when he started and people were slagging him off, you know, what way is he trying to play? Is he trying to get 11 Lallana's running around the pitch, blah, 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 blah. But he trusted his process, and then the players began to trust his process and learned his process and put it into place, and he got the best people available to him to execute it, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering what has occurred that has made him potentially either not trust the tactics he has trusted the whole way along, and this season tried to introduce something new. Is it because of personnel? Is it because of the physical condition of the players that he has? Is it the fact that we don't have high level young players coming through? Now, that's not saying that the young players that we have aren't high level, but they're not high level in terms of the knowledge and understanding of having to do what we do and how we play. Mm-hmm. And they're now been asked to do something very different, which for a young person who's just trying to establish themselves in the team, I'm sure is very challenging. So I think all of that mixed in is probably what is going on. So
I think that, yeah.
And just to finish, I as fans and as human beings, we've been conditioned to point the finger and find that's the reason why this is all going wrong. So what we've had this season is FSG. That's the reason this is all going wrong. Pep Linders. That's the reason this is going wrong. Klopp has lost the dressing room. That's the reason this has gone all wrong. Particular players. Darwin Núñez. That's the reason this has gone all wrong. And it's not saying that there's not validity to any of those, right? But maybe it's not just one thing that's the cause of all this. Maybe it's just an absolute collective shitstorm all hitting at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really important point. And I think there's validity in every single one of those, that each of those is a stressor on the system that had aged, and you were trying to get a group of different people to do the same thing they had been doing for 3 years. And I think, it's funny, right? Because it's like, you think about, well, I'll speak for myself. Like if the Wi-Fi goes out, like, what do? Like, I turn it off and turn it on again and fucking hope it works, And it's like, it's just those things that you expect to be working day in and day out. But if your Wi-Fi constantly isn't working and there's a certain reason why, like you might go on Google and figure out, oh, here's this thing I need to do. You look into it in this more technological and detailed way to understand what the problem is. But like when you have something that usually works for you and then stops working, it's jarring, it's frustrating. And like the first impulse isn't to like, well, let me really dive into this and understand how it works so I can fix it. The first impulse is to like smack it or shake it or just like, go back to how you were. And it's like our Fabinho is broken and it's never broken. Like our Virgil van Dijk is broken and it's never broken. So it's like, what the fuck do we do? I'm swearing a lot in today's pod, but I think that's allowed, right?
It is.
So, so it's like, what do we do? And it's not as clear of an answer because it's a start from scratch question. I mean, these were the pieces that made us great. Like that was the spine that Fabinho, Alisson, and Virgil was the thing that brought us from good to great. And now 2 of those 3 pieces aren't operating the way they normally do. I also think, like, we talked for years about how important Bobby was or Klopp talked about how important Bobby was. Well, a lot of us were like, well, he doesn't really score as many goals as we were like. I bet we could replace him. But, like, now that he's out, it's like he might have been doing those things that we didn't even realize. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of people who are calling Wijnaldum a ghost and saying that he was missing are like, well, we got to replace him. And it's interesting, right? It's like there's this unit and group that we had that functioned in this really exceptional way that it's not working anymore. And we've tried unplugging the Wi-Fi or unplugging the router and plugging the router back in a few times. And, like it's not working any better. And so now there's something that really needs to be understood. And so, that's where finger pointing comes in too. Well, it must be this. Oh, it must be this. Someone else is hogging all my bandwidth or whatever, right? Like I don't know what it is. Like, but Pep and Linders is probably the root cause.
The lightning rod, and and again, we're also not criticizing anybody for pointing the fingers either. Like, if we look behind the finger pointing in life, never mind just football, it's usually because there's something going on for us that's making us feel that way. And for all of us as fans, the reason we finger point is because we're upset that our team is not doing well. And because we can't control it, we will finger point. We can't do anything about it. We will finger point. It's what we've been conditioned to do from, the moment we're born, probably,
This makes us feel like we can point to a problem, which gives us a better chance at a solution. And it's saying it's Pep Linders' fault, and if we get him out, then everything's going to be good. It is terrible, but also sort of comforting because it's like, well, if this just happens, then it's better.
And there's also no consequence to us if what we think should happen happens and it doesn't work out. Whereas there is a consequence to Klopp. Yeah. There is a consequence to Linders. There is a consequence to the club, to the players. If the thing that they think is the problem and they act on it and it doesn't make any difference, there is a consequence to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think this is one of those right now, like it's funny, like in my role as a sports psychologist, when a lot of stuff isn't working, sometimes there's suddenly a lot of pressure on me. Because it's like, this must be a mental issue.
Mm-hmm.
And early on in my career, and still sometimes now, like I feel that pressure and take some of that pressure on. It's like, I have to solve this, right? But there's a million fucking things wrong. Like, I don't have an answer. And I think that's something important sometimes, is to be able to look at all of this and be like, there is no obvious answer. And I don't need to solve it. Like, I want Liverpool to do well, but I don't have to understand this. Like, I don't have to fix it. I don't have to point out what's going wrong. Like, if I think, you know what I mean? And like, that's maybe more in a professional capacity as a fan. Like, I think in a professional capacity, it's like, okay, what's my slice of this? What's my 10%? What's my 5%? And I think so often we look for one tactic to be a home run, or we look for one player to be a home run, or one change of system, or, play this person or this one signing. And it's like, okay, this is going to be the thing that totally rights the ship. And I think you have to be able to step back and take a bigger picture view, especially when things are going as wrong as they are right now, and say, like, here's the 10 pieces that need to get better. And, like, there are 10 pieces that need to get better. And that's not just to say 10 players. That's to say, clearly there's been issues with our recruiting. Clearly there's been issues with, like, all the conversations we had in the past at the start of the season about do we need to buy players? Did we need to buy players? I'm going to hold I was wrong. We didn't need to buy players for the first team, but we did need to be investing in the next set of players. And these players should have had people pushing them sooner. That's true. And those players weren't bought. Mm-hmm. And this transfer window this summer was bad. And the coaches' voices might be getting a little stale. And, like, if you start to add these things up, like, yeah, there's a lot of issues, and they're not all going to be fixed by the same people. They're not fixed in the same settings. It seems like there's issues in the medical department as well. There's issues with how we're approaching strength and conditioning. There's issues with the kinds of injuries we're picking up. There's issues with stats people leaving and like analysis people leaving, and I don't know what that's about. Probably the throw-in coach is having issues. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know about Thomas Gronwar. But, yeah, clearly there's a lot of issues in a lot of different places. And, sometimes things become a big mess, and you kind of need I've just been making fun of the Wi-Fi router thing, but you need a little bit of a reset.
Yeah, but I also think as well, it doesn't mean that your Wi-Fi router needs to be binned just because it stopped working the way you expect it to now. It might need to be, but it might not be. So we may not need to bin off Virgil. We may not need to bin off Fabinho. We definitely don't need to bin off Alisson, because he's the only one that's stopping us from being in the bottom three. But it'll always come back to this thing for me about things not being binary, right? Mm-hmm. It's not either this is good or this is bad. It is, things fluctuate. And it just so happens at the moment things are fluctuating quite aggressively up and down, because I have no doubt. The one game I would be fully confident of us going into tomorrow would be if we were playing Man City. Because I do think we would lift our game. We would play a tactic that would work, that could nullify their threat and actually, maximise ours. Right? And that's the only game, the only team, I mean it, the only team I would feel confident in us getting a result out of. But even then, people will laud Man City for, they're constantly, adding new players and high quality players. And absolutely they are. I'm not saying that they're not. And they have maintained an exceptionally high level for a very long time. People measure up against Man U's 26 years, or Fergie's 26 years at Man U, and how well they did for so long. But that doesn't happen. That was just a freak, right? So City's level has been so high, and it probably is because of the recruitment. But they bought the best striker in the world this summer. and they're in second position.
Mm-hmm.
They were knocked out of the Carabao Cup last night with a strong team out. They, you know, Haaland is probably going to break a lot of records, but he's not looking like the world beater right now that he was. De Bruyne is not looking like the best midfielder in the world right now. That might change in the next 2 weeks. But my point is, this is not do X and Y will occur. It's just not how it works. So if we can pull it back to somewhere in the middle and go, okay, well, let's, instead of constantly pointing fingers, if I was in Klopp's position, I would be sitting down and evaluating myself and looking at, okay, well, let's pick something, right? And let's work this way towards this goal for the rest of this season. And if it doesn't work, we'll evaluate it at the end of the season. And I'd almost come out and say to the fans, now I know it's difficult, but say, this is what we're doing. We're playing a way that we're hoping, that we're working towards it actually working out. And if it doesn't, we'll evaluate it, but we'll also be the ones that will take the hits if it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need to worry about it. We're doing the best that we can for the club and go from there. Now, that's never going to happen, and I don't think fans would necessarily turn around and go, oh, okay, Jurgen, we're with you. We're not going to point any fingers if we lose every single match between now and the end of the season.
Right.
What's your take?
You know, I agree with you. Like, you got to find a thing to focus on. You got to find a process that's going to be the foundation for confidence and focus. And I think he's looking for that. I think if you go back to the start of the season, we got something in preseason wrong, probably. It's like these things just built on each other. And now we're at a spot where, we're missing Jota, who I think, and we're missing Bobby, who I think are both sort of meant to be the more experienced people who have been embedded in this system for a long time. And so I think even Diaz, who was around for half a season more, but maybe wasn't quite embedded in the system the same way, he always talks about defending from the front and how important that is. And it's like now you just have players who don't know how to do that and aren't used to doing that and aren't conditioned to do that. And when he says, like, you press from the heart, it's internalized, you memorize it and you execute it. And so, I think following from that, then there's all these injuries in the midfield and just shortages in the midfield. And I think the injuries at forward exposed the midfield. And then these things all roll together, right? And that highlights the lack of recruitment. And so it's not that, sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, this has all been burned down to rubble, right? Like there's nothing left. And I don't totally think that's the case. Like there needs to be some sort of hard restart. There needs to be like a traction point somewhere where we can start getting traction. But I think the same way it collapsed one at a time because the things are all connected, like it can kind of come back one at a time too and build its way back up. And I think Klopp's good about being patient. I think he knows that this is not a short-term solution. I think he sees what's in front of him. I don't think he has ever looked at this and been like, okay, a couple games and we can be back. I think he, especially after the injuries to the forwards and especially after realizing what kind of shape the midfield was in, I think he had more of a recognition of okay, this is a project.
Yeah.
This is so projects take time, and I think it's funny. It's not so different from Klopp's first season. In that, there was a lot of things that worked and were exciting, and we were happy to have some direction, but we didn't yet have the expectation that everything was going to go well. And games whatever, were still frustrating. The draw against West Brom or whatever, that was still frustrating. And when Klopp went and cheered the fans for staying, I don't know, a lot of us were still frustrated after that game. But we had belief because it was a growth trajectory rather than a downturn. And I think looking at this group now and being this is what they are. And where are the growth points? What's being built? I agree with you very much with, like, it would be nice to know what to get behind. Because when Klopp first came in, it was like, okay, I don't know. We're not winning all the time, but, like, we're having some fun. And I can see the intensity in the pressing football. I see something different, which, like, watching us at the end of Rodgers was awful. Oh, my God. It was so bad. It was so bad. And so at least I don't think maybe we're that bad.
I don't think we're that bad. I don't think we're that bad. And
I don't think we seem as stagnant there. Like, there's things to get excited about. Like, Darwin Núñez is still exciting. And maybe that's the thing, right? Like, there's some of these games where if he had scored a situation that he missed, like in, I don't know, fuck, what game was it? Leicester? I think Leicester was that when he came on, not came on, but that was like in the second half early. I can't remember the game.
He's had a lot of misses.
Yeah, oh my God, he has. But he came on and missed one chance that was like
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, mag boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
No, it was Brentford. We went in even at halftime, right? Or then he came on and like he missed the chance that or was slightly offsides and the chance that looked really good. Whatever it was. One of these games that we've played. If he scores that, the game looks really different. And so like that's one of the things that's really important too, is like a lot of these games could have gone really differently. So it's like we do have issues. But also if a couple of these things start falling our way, it's possible to gain some momentum, and like that can go a really long way just in being like, okay, this isn't a pile of trash. Like we're not screwed. Like we can still win. And like a couple of those really can go a long way towards providing that reassurance and confidence and trust in a process that I believe that Klopp is working to put into place.
Yeah, and I think there's what you're talking about hopefully can help some fans look at if they have confirmation bias in relation to Klopp. He's never done it. He's never rebuilt a team. AKA, he's done. Like, and I've seen it a lot. Klopp's done. That's it. This team is done. Like you said, as if it is now a pile of trash, pile of rubble, and there is nothing there to build a foundation on. And it's just not true. And I honestly believe that, like, I know there was a lot of talk on Anfield Index pods at the start of the season about this being a transition season, and then people are going, bullshit, calling bullshit. But I think it is a transition season. And I would suspect that 2023-2024 season, we will look very different. I think it's just unfortunate that we're in the middle of the season and we have the opportunity still to win trophies that and get into top four. And obviously not getting top four may impact our ability to sign the players that we might want to sign. But that doesn't mean that it's going to impact on our ability to sign players that may be good enough for what we need going forward. You know, no one was happy, or very few people were happy with signing Sadio Mane. Very few people were happy with signing Andy Robertson. Very few people were excited about Bobby Firmino. So this is okay for us to not get a Jude Bellingham, to not get an Enzo Fernandez. It doesn't mean that there aren't players out there who can come in and do the job we need to be done. And I think if this summer would be very important in terms of recruitment, so that we're not heading into 23-24 with the same midfield options, because physically they just can't do the demands that are required of them. Not saying anything about their abilities, but just physically they just can't do it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think there was a version of this season that I was excited by at the beginning of the year, where our front line was Mo, Bobby, and Diaz, with Nunez working his way in over the course of the season, where our midfield was Fabinho, Thiago, and Naby, with Henderson hanging out behind them, and I guess Milner kicking around somewhere. Like, it gets thin really fast, right? But Elliott maybe breaking his way through. In that front line, you've got Fabio Carvalho doing kind of cool things, and then where our back line is, Virgil, Matip Konate, and Trent and Robbo with Alisson and net. And it looks like this is basically the same team that almost won everything last year. And cool, that's exciting. Maybe they can keep doing it, and they can't. And we didn't plan for the eventuality of what happens if they don't. And we didn't plan for what happens if 2/3 of our experienced starting lineup can't play, or even, losing Diaz, Bobby, and Jota at the same time. So it's that transition was also accelerated by bad results and bad fortune. There's a version of this team that can kind of hang on for one more year while this rebuild takes place behind it. But because we held on to this first team a little too long, we went from being able to transition behind the scenes to transitioning right in front of your eyes every week.
Yeah, and I think that not only that, but the acceleration of the transition in terms of potential new owners, with so many backroom staff leaving, it's just all happening at the one time. And I, for one, am happy that Klopp has stayed consistent, and that, well, unless he leaves, but he's not talking about it. So, that we do need that stability point, that foundation pole that's going to, everything else can be built around.
Yeah, and he's the best one to have for it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? There's sometimes restarting everything at once can feel really clean and feel really nice, but the reality of it is that you have to wait longer. It's going to take longer for things to go into place, and there's plenty of pieces of what we had that are worth holding on to, or worth, so I think having Klopp to really be there and be present and build this group through a transition, I'm really, is there a world where maybe he can't do it and 7 years is just his limit? I guess that's possible, but it seems super weird and arbitrary for that to just be it. And totally. So I think instead, there's going to be a hard year, maybe a hard year and a half, but if we give him that time and patience and get this new group of players in, there's a lot to be excited about, I think, too. I think Nunez and Diaz are super exciting. I love Jota. I think there's a lot of players kicking around in this team. Trent is still, unbelievable. We still have Ali. Konate is really good. There's a lot within this group that can turn into a next wave of something really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the transition period, and that's hard to watch and hard to be a part of. And I think, for me, a lot of what the season's going to be about moving forward. Oh, I forgot about Gakpo. I like this Gakpo guy. Not even just for his name, but I also like the personality contrast between Gakpo and Darwin, where it's everything you hear about Gakpo is he's this very serious, studious, professional, straight-ahead person. And meanwhile, Darwin is just the loosest cannon. And it's the two of them together. There's a picture from the first training where it's with the two of them together, and it's they're both 6'4", and it's funny. So there's something fun to watch here, and I think for me, it's super disappointing that we're not as good as I want it to be. And it's going to be a lot of really frustrating games. But I think trying to notice those moments of something new taking shape and try to get behind those and understand what's going on. Like, I watch this sport for fun. And, like, sometimes, like, being super frustrated is part of what allows you to have fun on the other side because it means you care about it. But, like, starting to look for just, like, there's something here building. And I think it'll be impressive and good. I'm glad we've got Klopp. And my position on Leinders has shifted. I'm less enthusiastic about him than I was. But what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Well, I hope this conversation has given you listeners an opportunity to just take stock of where we're at. And if you were in the camp that it's all done, hopefully we've given you some stuff to think about. For me, I'm excited about the future. I think there's a lot there to be excited about. I think it's going to be probably a trudge to the end of the season. We may not win anything. We may finish outside the top 4. But maybe that's okay for right now. It's not what we want, but it will help build a foundation from which we're kicking on next season. Right. And Darwin is not going to continue to miss the level of chances that he has. He's not. He's just not. He's not. And for me, I like you. I love watching this club. I've loved supporting this club for as long as I have, and I'm glad I'm at the stage in my life now where I'm not as dragged down as much as for as long as I used to be when results don't go our way. And maybe I'll take on board what you're saying and start to view matches now more about, well, where are the chinks of light that I'm seeing that maybe weren't there before that we can focus on. And the club have tried to sign the likes of Tchouaméni. They've tried signing players like that and they didn't get them. And so it's not like they're oblivious to it.
Right. And look, they've got work to do there, but like, I just, I can't personally getting too focused on how much money we have and who's available and who might be available and who's on what plane to wear. Like, I actually do really enjoy following the drama of the transfer chat room. Like, I'm there every day now. I'm hooked. The soap opera of that chat room is you call it a chat room on Discord? Either way, I enjoy myself thoroughly following that and Gags' updates and stuff. But I think getting too invested in that for me becomes really overwhelming. I am enjoying it and I want us to be better and I want us to win trophies, but also like watching that growth and watching people come into their own and watching a team come into its own is something I enjoy. So I will do my best to enjoy that. And in some ways too, like, yeah, it sucks that we're going to have to push for top 4 and work really hard, but it also is kind of like, we got this game against Brighton this weekend, which is a huge game now, right? And we're used to Brighton being this team we should sort of brush aside, but this is going to be a fun game to watch. And it stinks that part of that's because we're worse than I wish we were, but like, also it makes this a game that is much more interesting than maybe it would have been 2 years ago. But
anyway, Andrew, thank you so much for your expertise and your insights and all the other fluff and stuff and all your swearing today. You appreciate it. And listeners, thank you so much for lending your ears. I think sometimes with this podcast, we try to make sense of things and we always at some point go off on a bit of a crazy tangent. So, it wouldn't be right if we didn't do that. So Andrew brought that to us just at the end. Here's hoping we beat Brighton, and we will be back very soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.